Hi, just like a little intro recording here. I was meant to get this video out before episode 5 came out, and then I got busy. I definitely was not getting drunk at my best friend's house while we watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. That definitely isn't what happened. Uh, but anyway, yeah, I recorded this before episode 5. However, I don't want to. If I'm going to go through it all and amend everything I said to be in line with episode 5, then it would just. I might as well just refilm the video. Anything I say, any of my predictions that turn out to be untrue, I'm gonna keep them in because maybe those predictions will pan out in the long term. Uh, but the only thing I will say is I mentioned questionable decision making. There was one big questionable decision in episode 5 in terms of who won, but apart from that, the decision making is still, I would say, pretty good. And I mentioned later about Eureka and her being in the top in episode 4 being bamboozling to me. However, they also did not give her the win when I actually think giving her the win seemed like the most obvious thing to do. So, it's not. I'm editing that section down, but it gives me hope that it isn't just we're going to give this season to Eureka like episode 4 made me think. But apart from that, please enjoy the video. Let's go. How am I meant to drink this? Hello, and welcome to the Mighty Sip. I can't sip because I have lipstick on. Where the tea is usually kind of like a lukewarm temperature. There was a sudden bang. I'm actually doing something on topic. Oh, by the way, I completely forgot I haven't posted a video in like 6 months and the channel's got a new name. Hi, hello. Today, I'm going to be talking about All Stars 6, the current All Stars season as of episode 4. This should be up before episode 5. As you can tell by the title, I'm rather enjoying this season. And I think if the season continues at this rate, it will probably be the best All Stars season since All Stars 6 and one of the best seasons in the last few years. So what's this video about? We're just going to break down and dissect how the season's gone so far. The challenges, the format, the judging, also talking about the storylines of the Queen so far, and predicting what possible storylines could be in the future. What should we start with? I think we're going to start off with the challenges. And the reason we're going to start talking about the challenges first is because a season of Drag Race is made and broken by its challenges. Down Under learned that lesson. There's a reason we don't have talent shows on non-All-Star seasons. I'm not going to get into Down Under, that's a separate video. I don't want to open that wound again. So, we started with the talent show. Moving on. Can we get rid of the talent show? It's been 5 seasons of the talent show. It's done. It was probably the worst All-Star talent show, not because necessarily everyone did bad, but because half of them did lip-sync numbers, and sadly it's very hard now, after 5 seasons of it, to bring a talent that we haven't seen before. And as per usual, they don't typically reward the unique talents anyway, so what's the point? I know they call it a variety show to try and get away from that, but like, what's the point of it? But apart from that, the challenges have been stellar. So we had a ball, and it was the first time we ever had a traditional ball on All Stars. We had this sort of new format where there'd always be 2 categories, and one of them was always more like a character category, like the soup can, or the country cousin, or even in All Stars 1, they did the superhero thing, which was kind of their equivalent of a ball. And the first outfit was like, you just had to be a pedestrian. So it was just like, well, meant to be their like normal alter ego, so surely it should be subdued. Anyway, we had a normal ball. You had to bring the first 2 categories, and you had to make the 3rd category. It was the first time they ever did a colour-themed ball. It was a nice idea. Perhaps they shouldn't have had to also wear blue wigs, because that made literally everything on stage was blue. But yeah, it was a good idea. The 3rd challenge was the commercial challenge, but they again did a first for All Stars. First of all, it was the first challenge in All Stars ever judged as teams apart from All Stars 1. And it was also the first time they did the commercial challenge in teams on All Stars, and it was also the first time on All Stars they did the commercial for a service rather than the commercial for a product. Or what All Stars 4 invented, we have to design like a room and then make a commercial for the room. It was the first time they ever did like sort of the Tap That app from season 10 kind of thing. And yeah, it worked very well. The whole side hustle thing, that it was kind of vague, and they all were given a theme, but they all were given rather vague themes. The Exorcist one was the most specific, But then the other one was drag fixers, so basically just drag Olivia Pope. And then the third one was escorts. And it's like, well, you can do a lot with those ideas. So that was a great challenge. And then the fourth challenge and the most recent challenge was the Rusical, which has been missing from All Stars since 3. All Stars 4 and 5 decided to do girl group challenges. Side note, can we stop with the girl group challenges? We've done. UK is the only part of Drag Race that has consistently good girl groups in the girl group challenges. So let's go back to the Rusicals. I'm sick of the girl groups. And it was the exact same as the other All Stars girl group. It was exactly the same as the other All Star Rusicals in that it was everyone impersonated a famous person. It was sort of your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn, which is what the Rusicals have become now. Whether you like it or not, that's just how the Rusicals work. Oh no, actually, because season 13 went back to the sort of old Rusical where everyone has different roles. Yeah, but then that Rusical was shit. So maybe we should go back to this one. Yeah, they all had their own little moments. They didn't actually do choreography for everyone else's verses. In the All Stars 2 and 3, you had your verse, but you also had to do group choreography in all the other verses. That was gone now, and they all filmed them all separately, so that we don't even know if they did the Rusical on the same day. They maybe did it the day before. And so it was like good though. Like, it worked out because it's just fun when the Rusical has every single person impersonating a different person. Lots of persons in that sentence. The reason the challenges have been so good in All Stars is they've basically been switching things up by going back to what it was like before, which is working. I'm enjoying it. Is my lipstick still on? We went to the traditional ball rather than doing the All Stars ball. We did a team-based commercial challenge, which we've never done in All Stars before, but we've done on regular seasons before. We went back to doing the All Stars Rusical, which we haven't done in a few years. And it's like, who would have thought that going back to the things we liked would work? Shocker. So yeah, one of the reasons this has been such a great season is the challenges have been good so far. And then next episode is like a Red Table Talk thing. I think the improv-y... Oh, yes, it's like that's an improv challenge. The improv-y hosty ones, like the Drag Con panel, or like the Oprah Winfrey challenge all the way back in season 1, can be hit or miss, but I think they're parodying Red Table Talk, which... there's opportunities for interesting comedy. Moving on to the next thing, the format. So... it's actually the same format as All Stars 5, which I was concerned about because spoiler alert, All Stars 5 is not my favourite season. Video coming back out about that in, I don't know, 3 years. And the Lip Sync Assassin twist is a good idea, but I don't think All Stars 5 used it to its best potential. I think partly by some of the assassins they chose, because some of... Okay, I'll be honest, Vanjie wasn't an assassin in my eyes. I was like, And also some of the songs they paired them with, like All Stars 5 didn't have the best lip sync songs. So this season has been great, and we've had great lip sync songs, apart from Bruno Mars, that was a bit iffy. We've had great lip sync assassins. Conveniently, every single lip sync assassin has somehow played into a storyline, which I don't know how... Like, I genuinely think just by coincidence, they've just all worked out. Coco sent Serena home from the same season, and they have their old drama, like, you know, exit stage left. We had a season 11 showdown, episode 2, we had a season 6 showdown, episode 3, and then Jessica Wilde had to send her best friend in episode 4. So, storyline-wise, the lip sync assassins have been amazing. The only sort of storyline assassin thing we got in All Stars 5 was Morgan sending home Mayhem. So yeah, coincidentally, that's not even their planning, that's just how it's worked out, and it's been wonderful. But also, we're in episode 4, and none of the lip sync assassins have lost a lip sync yet.
Get used to disappointment.
We've had 3 lip sync assassins win, and we had a tie in episode 2, which should have really just been Raja's win, but I understand they're probably trying to save Brooke's face. Like, Canada's Drag Race was not great for her, so also having her then lose a lip sync is not gonna do wonders for her image. Also, the tip's gotten bigger. The tip's now $30,000 for next week, and tip never got that high. It only got to 20,000 in All Stars 5, so that's big stuff. Like, if you win next week, especially because every week the challenge prize is always $5,000, apart from Yara in episode 1, who didn't get $5,000, she got like a gift card or something, I think. So yeah, whoever wins next week is going to win like $35,000, which is a third of the prize money. I know Raja's not going to win it because I don't think they'd let her, but if Raja won that, she'd have $60,000. She'd almost have 2/3 of the prize pot, which is good for her because it means if she doesn't end up winning the season, she'll be like, it doesn't matter, I got the money.
Get used to disappointment.
We've had some also really interesting picks, like Jessica Wilde. I never thought would come on to be a lip sync assassin, especially considering she didn't win the only lip sync she did on Drag Race prior. But considering the lip sync she did do, because at first I was like, oh, is this a Vanjie? I was like, why is she here? She killed the lip sync. So she is a lip sync assassin. They knew something we didn't. They must have seen her perform in... Where did she perform? Vegas? No. LA? I don't know where Jessica Wilde lives. But wherever she's performing, she's doing a good job. Looks great, by the way. This isn't a review, Aaron. Move on. I really want to drink this. But I don't want to ruin my lipstick. Even though we haven't even got to the queens and the storylines, the foundation of a season is the challenges and the elimination format. Obviously, in a regular season, it's the same. But in All-Star seasons where it's different, how we're eliminating everyone is extremely important. All-Stars 1 fails because from the jump, the format is horrible. And then the last thing I want to talk about with the format is the choices. In the All-Stars 5 was a real low point in terms of eliminating each other, because literally every single week, the lip sync assassin and the top All-Star had the exact same lipstick. So you finish the season and go, so effectively these lip syncs meant nothing, because no matter what would have happened, the same outcome would have happened every week. Whereas this season, there's one definite difference in outcome, which was episode 1, and I think because for some reason in episode 4's Untucked they didn't show who Jan picked, which is a new thing. I think Jan picked A'keria, which means 4 episodes in we've had 2 episodes where the choices have differed, and I honestly think that's probably going to continue going forward. I think that is because they have more queens, which I guess I'll just mention now. I think because there's more queens, you have way more differing viewpoints. There's more discrepancies, and that's also why in episode 3's elimination, A'keria was this close to being eliminated. She was literally, if there had been one vote changed, it would have been a tie, which, by the way, we've never had that. So does that mean double elimination? If it's before the Revenge episode, it probably means double elimination, because they can just bring extra queens back in the Revenge. But if it's after the Revenge episode, then God knows what happens. Yeah, so that was actually like, when I watched Untucked and it showed the votes, I was just like, oh my God, A'keria was like almost sent home. Shocker. We'll get into it later, but going into this, I thought this was the A'keria season to win. So seeing that she was a hair's breadth away from going home, is that a phrase? I'm an English language A-level student. I am an embarrassment. No news. And the reason I talk about these things first, rather than the more interesting things like the judging or the queens, is because the foundation of a season is the format, which is typically the same, but in All Stars the format is a lot more shaken up because the way everyone is eliminated is different. And the challenges. You have bad challenges and a bad format, then your Drag Race Down Under. You have good challenges, then your Drag Race Hispania most of the time. So moving on, now I'm gonna go through storylines, but I'm gonna break them down like in different segments, because there is a young child tossing a plastic bag across the pavement. Children wandering around with plastic bags. Oh, the government needs to crack down on them. Oh yeah, the storylines of a reality competition series are the most important thing, and you may think that isn't the case. It is. The problem is although a storyline is one of the most important things, you cannot let people know that you are making decisions based purely on storyline. So by nature, a storyline has to at least mostly align with how they're doing in the competition. Another lesson that Down Under hopefully has learned if they get a season 2. So we're gonna go through everyone's storylines, and we're gonna talk about why they're good. So we're gonna start with the 4 eliminated queens so far. Serena didn't really get a storyline. She was first out. I honestly think they cast her to be first out, because you could argue that she maybe didn't even deserve to be in the bottom 2 that first episode, and she did better than Trinity in that episode. So by what most people go, oh, what's fair, which doesn't exist, by the way, you would have thought they'd eliminated Trinity, but I honestly think Serena was literally like, she was cast to go home first, I believe. Then Jiggly had her storyline with Ginger. It was quite a big storyline, which they actually set up in the first episode, so in the second episode it didn't come out of nowhere. It was kind of predictable, because Jiggly was getting a lot of screen time in the second episode, and they'd set up a storyline in the first episode, and I was like, oh no, this is it for my Jiggly. But it was well enough done for a second episode eliminee. That is probably the best you can execute a storyline. Silky, I do think got the short end, because she was in the background entirely, I think her low placement was a bit sus. Not any more sussing than the judging usually is. Not a standout suspect moment. But yeah, she was like really not a part of the show. She like didn't get much screen time until episode 3. And based on what she said behind the scenes, I don't know, I was expecting Silky to make it further. I think maybe the producers were as well, because she let it slip that her Missy Elliott verse was meant to be the first one in the halftime show Rusical. So I think for some reason, maybe but after the first 2 episodes, what they'd been presented with in terms of storylines, I'm just guessing that everyone else's storylines were more enticing to them, which happens a lot. Sometimes it's not even anyone's fault. The producers are just like, oh, well, we think the storyline's better, and we haven't got all the screen time in the world, so sorry. You're not going to get any. So I think Silky was probably the worst done so far. And then Yara's was interesting. Yara was a typical first episode misdirect. She wins the first challenge, and then she doesn't make it to, that far, which happens a lot in All Stars. The only All Star season where because obviously 2 through 4 had 2 challenge winners per episode. The only season where that was different was All Stars 4, because both Trinity and Monique won the first challenge, and then they both made it to the end. So yeah, I mean, it was with India All Stars 5, Aja All Stars 3. You could argue both Tatiana and Roxy in All Stars 2 in different ways, because Tatiana went home the next week and Roxy was never had a high placement again. So yeah, when Yara won the first challenge, I did think, this doesn't necessarily actually mean anything good for you. But she was a very big part of every episode. And I think they her story with Trinity was going quite well, but by the end of episode 3, that storyline was kind of done. And yeah, her and Trinity, and I'll get to Trinity later, her and Trinity didn't really seem to be presented as clicking with the rest of the girls that much. I think her going home wasn't unexpected. Even though she won the first challenge, and she did well in the third challenge, and I don't even think she should have been in the bottom in the second challenge, somehow in episode 4, where even though Akira, this was her second time in the bottom in a row, it was her third low placement and she's never placed high so far, for some reason it just made sense that Yara should go home, which I guess they did a good job in terms of editing, of making that seem like the logical conclusion. Also, she often didn't really follow the runway category. Sometimes they made her seem a little bit, I don't know if egotistical is the word, but maybe too assured? Too self-confident. And also, just clarify now, I'm talking about them as characters. I know that these will probably be very different to how they are in real life. Real human beings are very complex, lots of different emotions, lots of different sides to ourselves. I am discussing them as characters on a TV show. But going to who's left, I'm going to start with the frontrunners, who, to my pleasant surprise, are Raja and Trinity. They are the clear frontrunners at this point. Even though Trinity was in the bottom in the first episode, that's not uncommon either, though. That does sometimes happen. Yeah, it happens. It's been more popular recently. I think over the last couple of years they have kind of wisened up a bit that it's an interesting storyline to be in the bottom episode 1 and make it really far. So they've kind of capitalized on that a bit more now. But Trinity, Slade, episode 3 and 4. Like, I believe she should have won the Rusical. Slay me, I don't care. Although I also think that Jan might have had a mental breakdown if she didn't win that Rusical, so I also, from a duty of care perspective, perhaps Jan should have won. And then Raja was high episode 1, 2, 3, deserved every high placement. I personally think she should have won episode 1 over 2, but again, these are like preferences. These are not what people tend to call rigging now, where the decision is so unusual, you're like, this has been rigged. It just doesn't seem like it's a difference in opinion. Like, were you watching the same thing? I haven't had, well, there's one. We'll get to that later. But apart from one placement, for the most part, every episode I've been like, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, and so it doesn't seem like Raja and Trinity being pushed as frontrunners. It seems that they are just naturally frontrunners. And that's what you want in a frontrunner. Because if an audience member can tell a frontrunner is being pushed to the end, they don't root for them. Eureka in season 10. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Also, it's very pleasant because the 2 frontrunners this season, one of them, Raja came 9th on her season, Trinity came 7th on her season. Neither of them have won a challenge on their regular season. So for them to be the frontrunners, it's basically a long game underdog storyline. It's not within the one season, it's a cross-season underdog storyline. It's hard to describe why, but I think the reason that this season's has been so enjoyable is because for the first time in a long time, the people who are killing the competition seem to actually be killing the competition. Not going to mention anyone's names from Down Under, but we all know who I'm talking about when we say that certain people were basically not performing well in any of the challenges, but were somehow we were made to believe that they were like killing the game. Well, we weren't made to believe. They tried to make us believe they were killing the game. It doesn't feel like this with All Stars 6. The next segment we're going to talk about, I'm calling them the safe streakers. And the reason I'm calling them the safe streakers is because they are the people that so far in the competition haven't got a whole lot of screen time, haven't talked to the judges that many times. In all the 3 cases, they've only talked to the judges once so far. Only had a high placement, 2 high placements. One of them only has had none and been safe the whole season. And I'm talking about Scarlett, Pandora, and Kylie. I think this is probably the record in terms of All Stars, the longest time to get a non-safe placement, because Scarlett has been safe 4 weeks in a row. I'm glad that everyone's talked to the judges at least once, but I'm interested to see where they go. This is something where, I'm going to make another video in about 3 weeks. Depending on what they do with these queens, the title might become All Stars 6. It was All Stars 6 dropped the ball and here's why. Because they have not had much in terms of storylines. And that's neither a positive or a negative in terms of my overall positive opinion on the season so far. That is just something to note. So Pandora has been very vocal about not being on the show very much, not getting a lot of screen time. First of all, I guess this is a spoiler, that doesn't bode well for how she's going to place in the season, because I don't think she'd be as vocal about it if she made it that far. So I do think Pandora is going to be one of the next people to go. Yeah, Pandora's the biggest puzzle, because Pandora, I think, has been suffering the most. She seems to be the most absent from the episodes, because Scarlett and Kylie get some stuff. Kylie had the storyline in episode 3 about can she be funny, can she do improv? Oh no, she's talked to the judges twice actually. See, Kylie's interesting because I feel like Kylie could still be a front runner. However, it's important that she wins next week's challenge for me. I'm gonna go to a bit of a Kylie tangent. I will get to Scarlett. Actually, no, I'll talk about Scarlett briefly now. Scarlett hasn't had much. She's been a very pleasant presence in the workroom, but I think with Scarlett, I feel like they're saving her. I feel like it definitely feels like she is going to get something, but I think they're waiting until she has a high or a low placement to give her storyline.
Get used to disappointment.
And so that's Scarlett, Pandora out of the way. Kylie, in fact, I'm going to give this segment a whole new name. There's something about Kylie. That's what this segment's called. There's something about Kylie, because Kylie is an intriguing person in that I think she's the most likely to get what would I call it? It's the edit where they're pretty safe the first half of the season, and they really come into the Bimini edit. The Bimini edit. Let's call it that. Because the artist formerly known as Yuki Lee, I always call them that because their name on YouTube now is just a lowercase u and a dot, which is very hard for people to find. But the artist formerly known as Yuki Lee made a great point in his video about the talent show in that Kylie seems to be getting a winner's edit. Despite the fact we're 4 episodes in and she's only placed high once, hasn't had a win. I don't know if she's going to win next week's challenge. But the reason I say she kind of has to is it's not unusual for winners to spend a lot of the first half of the season safe. Aquaria and Bob had wins in the first half of their seasons, but whenever they weren't winning, they were safe. But it is known that until Keita Mean had won Down Under, because she didn't win a challenge until episode 6, and there's a very unusual circumstances we're not going to get into now, you typically to have a chance of winning the whole season, you have to win one of the first 5 challenges. And even then, winning the 5th challenge does put you a little bit less likely than the rest. Again, Keita Mean, those were special circumstances with that season. It was a whole mess. So I do worry that if I think Kylie's going to make it to the end. I think that's guaranteed, and I think maybe they're giving her a slight winner's edit so that they can keep their options open. Or if somehow Trinity and Raja get eliminated before the finale, touch wood, that doesn't happen. I think if Kylie doesn't win the next challenge, then I think, even if she makes it to the end, I think her chances of winning are slim.
Get used.
So, and they're giving her, we know from the trailer, they're giving her that edit of like, can you be high energy? And it doesn't seem like a challenge that's going to be up her alley. So I think I do actually think it's possible they're going to do like a switcheroo where they lower your expectations, and then her team, which is her, Scarlet and Raja, ends up being the best team and she wins the challenge. That's what I'm hoping, please.
Get used to disappointment.
We're going to be talking about the elephant in the room. No, we're not talking about Eureka yet. We're talking about Jan. Because I didn't know if I wanted to talk about Jan in the Safe Girls version or sort of segment, or in the Frontrunner segment. I don't think she's a frontrunner, so it wouldn't make any sense. But she has, like, the perfect storyline. She won the Rusical, which she was iconic for not winning on her season. I mean, it was semi-predictable. I think I literally went into the season going, if Jan makes it to the Rusical, she's going to win it. However, I should also make a valid point, actually, that in fictional storytelling, you shouldn't change something just because the audience guesses it correctly. So, just because a storyline is predictable doesn't mean it's not a satisfying storyline. And yeah, I think Jan is a wild card because although she's won the Rusical, there still seems to be this vibe that the production are just not living for her. Like, there's something. So I think if next episode she's safe from the bottom, I think that means that Jan's days are numbered and they just gave her the Rusical win. Not because she didn't deserve it. One of the reasons they gave her the Rusical win was to satiate her wild fans, the Jan stans. I don't want to sound cruel, but there is a part of me that wants to have a look in the other time, like with the Rick and Morty little goggle things, to look into the timeline where Rue calls her safe for the Rusical. That to me sounds delightful, because I would love to see what her reaction is. Love to. But I also want her mental health to be okay. So, yeah. I'm glad things turned out the way they did. So before we get into my one concern, the one blemish on this season's storyline so far, we're going to talk about Ginger, and I'm going to talk about A'keria. Ginger and A'keria are sadly getting... what's the word? Disappointment is too harsh. They're getting the underwhelming edit, in that they are people you would have expected to do well on the season. A'keria got a lot of time on the trailer for it, and they're not performing great. I was very surprised about Ginger, because I really thought they were going to make Ginger do well because of All Stars 2. I'm very shocked that neither Ginger or A'keria had a high placement yet. And I told you earlier, I thought A'keria was going to win the season going into it. I thought A'keria's who's going to win, Kylie's who I want to win. Now I think Kylie is still probably going to make it to the end, but I really don't know about A'keria's chances now. Like, I'm really concerned for her. And sadly, in an All-Stars season, they almost have to exist. You have to get the underwhelmers, because otherwise it's not interesting. If the people who make it far go far, or sorry, if the people who you expect to go far go far, and the people you expect to go early, it's not interesting. That's one of the problems with All Stars 5, is I'd say apart from Angina and India, everyone else I was like, yeah. And I mean, it's a testament to how strong the cast is, to be fair, because I really didn't know who was going to make it far. But, like, it was two people, Ginger and A'keria, I thought they were going to be in the finale for sure. I mean, I agree. I do think that A'keria and Ginger's team was the worst in episode 3. I do think that A'keria was one of the worst two in the Rusical. But it's just so shocking. So, in a way, I guess another point I've kind of realised, a lot of what I've talked about is coincidence. All the Lip Sync Assassins having storylines with the people they're eliminating or competing against. A'keria and Ginger underperforming, if you will. They're not making that up. I kind of agree that they are not performing as well as a lot of the other girls in some of the challenges. And you think, wow, maybe Drag Race is all about luck. But like I told you, they have the great foundation and they have the great challenges and the great format. If you have a great base, let's have an analogy, a great base for a cake, then even if the rest of the cake is only fine, it's still a very enjoyable cake, because at least it stays up, it looks nice, and the taste is decent. If the taste is decent, but it completely falls apart, then it's just a mess. It's just a complete mess. And All Stars 6 is a mixture of great planning, great thinking with the base, but it also happens to taste amazing. And it just happens to have a great cast. It happens to have great storylines. They're not going to set up Trinity picking Yara or Yara picking Trinity. They're not going to set up all the voting. They're not going to set up any storylines with friendships and enemies and all that stuff. That just happens. This is what, in planning wise, this is one of the best planned seasons in a long time. And coincidentally, we just happened to get a load of coincidental good shit on top of it. So it's a great season. Also, I don't know the twist, I haven't been spoiled, but I've heard on the grapevine that whatever the return twist is, apparently it's really good, which makes me think it's going to be something different, which I appreciate. I do appreciate that every time they do the return twist in All Stars, it's always a different format. So if that's good. If the Return of the Queens episode is also good, then this season, honestly, I think as long as there isn't any shenanigans in the second half of the season, I think it's set, to be honest. Again, touch wood. Apart from one thing. So, the whole video is about how All Star 6 is great, and it is great, it's very enjoyable, love the challenges, love the queens, love the storylines, love this, that, the other, blah, 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 blah. One of the most consistent lip syncs in terms of the first 4 episodes ever. All the lip syncs have been pretty good. I mean, only Coco could make Uptown Funk work. There's one blemish, and it's to do with our favourite queen, who you may have noticed I have not mentioned much. Eureka. So, I'm not Eureka's biggest fan. I have to admit that bias. I have to be transparent. I didn't mind her on season 9. And season 10, I maybe wouldn't have minded her. However, some of her actions in terms of what she did with the Vixen, I think some of the, in my opinion, unfair favouring from the judges, all of it really just worked together to make me dislike her. I was like, the whole judges thing, that's not her fault, and usually I'm like, well, it's not their fault, production's favouring them. But when you're being favoured and you also, deliberately bait people into playing into roles that have been stereotyped for them because of their race, and even admit to it gleefully on camera, that, for me, that's kind of like, you can't go back from that for me. And times changed. I haven't watched We're Here. Times changed, and maybe she's grown. I don't know. She's probably never going to be my favourite queen, but I've tried to be fair. Episode 4 comes along, and up until this point, I was like, I'm surprised by how fair I think they've been with Eureka. In the top, for her Madonna. Her Madonna was better than Kylie's performance, then Pandora's performance, then Raj's performance. I think they should have been top 4 that week, because I think Kylie and Pandora were really close. I think it should have been Jan, Trinity, Kylie, and Pandora. And I was kind of shocked, because I thought, maybe because Trinity and Jan were the clear top 2, maybe it's top 2 and the bottom 4, because I honestly think Ginger did better than Eureka did. And I was shocked that she was high. And it makes me extremely concerned that Drag Race production is back on their season 10 bullshit. Because, and this is, again, I don't know if she's evolved as a person. I cannot say that. I'm not even educated enough to make an opinion on it, because it's not something that affected me. But in terms of how she's been treated by production, this could not ruin the season. This could take the season down a couple notches. If I was doing a ranking, it could knock it down quite a few pegs. Because I cannot get through another season of Eureka being pushed to the end. I'm sorry, I can't. And if you don't think Eureka was pushed to the end season 10, that's your opinion. My opinion is that she was. Not that she's not talented, not that she's not funny, not that she didn't have nice outfits, not that she didn't do good in some of the challenges. However, I think she was pushed to the end. I think a lot of the time she was judged unfairly. A lot of seasons these days, I don't think the double shantay needed to be a double shantay. Because a lot of times you get a double shantay, here's the tea, it's because the person who wins is not the person they wanted to stay. So they save the person who wins, but also the other person who's more useful to them in terms of production and editing and storylines. I don't know if I can get through it. And again, I don't want to seem like I'm exaggerating it. I'm not pissed or anything. I'm concerned. I'm not worried, I'm concerned. I'm going to keep an eye on how they treat Eureka now, because I was quite calm and chilled out because I thought everything was fine. Now I've been heightened in terms of how much attention I'm paying to how they judge Eureka. I now think that Eureka's probably going to... I think if I had to predict the top 4 now, it would be Eureka, Raja, Trinity, and Kylie. I think Raja, Trinity, and Kylie, because Raja and Trinity, however, they're doing so far, and Kylie just because of how she's being edited. and how popular she was, you know, after the Christmas special, and everyone was like, please bring her back, bring her back, bring her back, and they obviously know how popular she is. Yuriko, I think she's probably in the end just because I can already see the strings being pulled. But this is, I'll give them up their one-off. I'll give them their free pass. If there is another challenge where, oh, what is on my nose? If there is another challenge where either Eureka is safe when she should have been in the bottom, or she's high when she doesn't really, it doesn't make any sense for her to be high, then I will probably make a video about how the Drag Race production crew sometimes is their own undoing, because apart from that, this has been a great season. I mean, and honestly, after Down Under, season 13, I still don't know how I feel about that, but it definitely wasn't my favourite season. To have this All-Stars has been amazing. It's been unpredictable. It's been entertaining. Like I told you, have gone through the storylines been great. Challenges been great. Lip syncs have been great. It's been fun to watch. And also Untouched was good. I mentioned that Untouched and All Stars 5 was pointless. It didn't add anything to the experience. That's why they had to add those bits of ruin the judges doing random stuff, because there was nothing to do. Untouched has actually been useful this season. Like, it's actually allowed us to see bits they cut out of the show. Like, Jan talking about, I think her grandfather passed away, about how in the Super Bowl episode, apparently Rue came in and they all had snacks and painted their face and we had a chat with Rue, like, around, and I was just like, what? Why did you cut this out of the episode? This seemed fun. And the storyline with Scarlett and Raja, when Akira and Silky were up for elimination. Jiggly going outside because she didn't want to have to beg. You know, Untouched has been great. Still gonna keep my eye out. But this has been at least definitely the best start to a season in recent memory. Because Espana has been good. But that's the thing with the All-Stars. All-Stars, in my eyes, can only be really good or underwhelming because you have all these fan favourites coming back. A regular season can be just enjoyable, and All-Stars can't just be enjoyable because the expectations are so high. And I think for the first time since All-Stars 2, I'm actually, like, really enjoying it. I'm really looking forward to rewatching it. I'm excited to see what happens next. I'm not going, oh god, I can't wait to see what they do next week, because let me guess, Monique's not going to be in the top even though she did well, you know? Let me guess, Miss Cracker's going to win another challenge. Let me guess, they're going to send Alexis home because for some reason everyone believes India, you know?